Okay, welcome to class. Today we're going to be doing a review of the concepts that we've been learning the past 2 weeks, specifically pronouns, prepositions, and misplaced modifiers. We learned pronouns last week, we did prepositions on Monday, and prepositional phrases, and yesterday we did misplaced modifiers. The reason why I'm doing the review is because there will be a test soon, no questions. There will be a test soon, and so I want you guys to be as prepared as possible, and the video is going to help you with that. So first, let's review what we've been learning so far, so we get an idea. Last week we learned about pronouns, and we learned that there are many different ways pronouns can be used. The first way they can be used is what's called a subject pronoun. A subject pronoun is a pronoun that is used as the subject of a sentence. So for example, it's the part of the sentence that is doing the action. It's what the sentence is about. Here's an example sentence. He likes cake. He is performing the action, so he is the subject. And it's taking the subject form of the pronoun. Now here's an important concept you need to know. I will be quizzing you on this, so you need to know this. I may not be asking you the term, but the idea and the concept I need you to know. And it's called an antecedent. All pronouns have an antecedent. In other words, it's the noun that's being replaced by the pronoun. Sometimes the antecedent is obvious. An example of this sentence here, John decided that he wanted cake. In the sentence on the screen, he has an antecedent, which is John. So we know who he is. We know what word is being replaced. Sometimes the antecedent is implied, such as the example, he likes cake. We don't really know who he is, we just know that he likes cake. If I had written that sentence in a paragraph, I probably would have referred the person's name somewhere in the paragraph, so you would know. The antecedent doesn't have to be in the same sentence, but it usually is somewhere in the same paragraph, unless it's simply implied and it's by itself. Pronouns also take the form of objects. Now, on the walls in the classroom, there are two posters that were created by students. The first one is the list of subject pronoun sentences with examples of pronouns used as subjects, and the other one is a list of object pronoun sentences with examples of object pronouns being used in sentences. So if you need to review or you're not sure how they look in sentences, there are some examples for you to use. Objects can be direct. In other words, they are receiving the action of the sentence. So the verb in the sentence is acting directly upon whatever the object is. For example, Allison ran quickly toward her friend Anna. In this sentence, her, the pronoun her, is object form because it's receiving the action, which is ran quickly. Okay. Objects can also be indirect, such as if it's the object of a preposition. It's not necessarily receiving action from the sentence or from the subject, but it is still an object form. So whenever you have a prepositional phrase, its object, if it's going to be a pronoun, will always be the object form. Here's an example. Monty liked talking to her often. To her is a prepositional phrase because her is the object of the preposition to. So because it's an object, it takes the form her instead of the form she, which is the subject form, or hers, which is the possessive form. Now, possessive pronouns, this is the third type that we talked about earlier this week, or actually last week. Possessive pronouns show ownership. So, for example, her new car was red and really fast. In this sentence, her has possession of the new car, so it's possessive. I want you to notice something here. The pronoun her, in both of these sentences on the screen, the pronoun her is the same form, even though one is an object and one is possessive. There are a couple of pronouns in English that have the same form, no matter where they're being used, like you or her. Okay, so you have to know how it's being used to understand if it's possessive or if it's an object in this example. Here on the screen, you have a common list of the most oftenly used pronouns. So, for example, if we're talking about using a pronoun as a subject, we might have I, you, he, she, it, we, or they. If I wanted to use those same pronouns as an object, I would convert them to the following ones: me, you, him, her, it, us, them. If I was going to use them in a possessive form, they have ownership of something, I would say mine, yours, his, hers, its, ours, or their. Now, the possessive pronouns its and their, I need you to really be aware of because they have different forms. The words, I mean, not different forms, but the words can be used differently. It, for example, can be used in two different ways. ITS, the way it's written on the screen, is possessive form of it. Its fur, or its claws, or its teeth. But if you see IT apostrophe S, it isn't possessive, it's a contraction. And it means it is. So that's the difference there. By the way, if you ever see an apostrophe in a pronoun, it's always a contraction. You only use apostrophes in pronouns because they're using contractions or we're abbreviating two words. The pronoun there on the screen, their, also can be as other words that are similar to it. They're homonyms, there and there. The first there, there, is a word that means over there. It's a location. The second one, they apostrophe re, is a contraction for they are. So don't be confused by using the wrong ones. Now, I will admit I sometimes use it's incorrectly. So I have to stop and think, which it's am I using? Am I using the possessive or the contraction? And that's just something you're going to have to always remember to do. Now, prepositions. On Monday, we talked about prepositions and prepositional phrases, and we saw the analogy on the screen. If a squirrel can do it to a tree, it is probably a preposition. So, here's our fun little tree, and there's our fun-loving squirrel, ready for winter, getting ready for winter. Now, if the squirrel can jump over the tree, over is a preposition. Of course, that's assuming the tree is small enough for the small squirrel to jump over, but you get the idea. A squirrel can jump over a tree, so over is a preposition. A squirrel can sit under the branches of our tree. So under is also a preposition. Okay? Our squirrel can scamper away from the tree. Away from is also a preposition. Notice I use two words here. You do not have to use the word away. I use it sometimes when I'm being more precise. So if I want to precisely say where the squirrel ran from, I would say away from. Both of those are prepositions, and they're working together. Okay? So that is your analogy. If you can remember that, you can usually find the most common prepositions, not all of them though. Now, we discovered on Monday that a preposition is a word that shows relationship between a noun or a pronoun and another part of the sentence. Here's an example. Look at the screen, please. Alexander enjoys long walks in the woods. The phrase in the woods is a prepositional phrase. It begins with the preposition in, because our squirrel can sit in a hollow tree, so in is a preposition, and it shows a relationship to the word woods, the noun woods, in the woods. Okay. Here's a list on the screen now of the most common prepositions that we use in English. I'm not going to read them all, but if you are so inclined, you can pause the video and copy them down, but you certainly do not have to. But keep in mind these words. Anytime we see these words, they are usually a preposition, but there are examples where they are adverbs. If the word does not have an object, like a noun or a pronoun, it is not a preposition, it is an adverb. Okay? But adverbs do jobs that are similar to prepositions. Now, prepositional phrases. These are the fun facts, the things that I think are fun. People think I'm crazy. But I call them fun facts about prepositional phrases, things you need to know. And by the way, if you're watching the video or if you're in class with me, these will be on the test. So you need to know this stuff. Prepositional phrase can act as if it's either an adverb or an adjective. In fact, it always acts like that. Here's an example. John talks to the class. The prepositional phrase to the class acts like an adverb because it explains or modifies the verb talks. If it was describing a noun, it would be an adjective phrase. Okay, that's important. Another fun fact. If there's a pronoun in a prepositional phrase, it's either one of two things. It's either possessive or an object. And if it's possessive, you can ignore it and keep going till you find the noun that it's talking about. If it's an object, it's probably the object of the preposition and it's the end of the prepositional phrase. Because remember, class, the prepositional phrases begin with a preposition and with an object. Okay. Now, here's an example of what I mean to get a more clear idea. Molly talks to her. Well, the to her is a prepositional phrase, and it has preposition to, and its object is her. But if I did it this way, Susan walks briskly to her car, the phrase to her car is the prepositional phrase, because the word her in this case is possessive. Whose car is it? Her car. That means that it's not the object of the preposition, so it's not an object, and it's not the end of the prepositional phrase. Okay. Now, yesterday we talked about dangling or misplaced modifiers. I'm going to go over this briefly. The video is already available for you to view on this from yesterday, but here is a brief overview of modifiers. First of all, a modifier is any word, like an adverb or an adjective, or any phrase, which is a group of words, that describes or modifies a word somewhere in the sentence. Another way of saying adverb or adjective is modifier. So if I said, what is the modifier of the noun John, you know you're looking for an adjective. If I asked, what is the modifier of the verb ran, you know you're probably going to be looking for an adverb. Okay. To take that one step further, if I said, what is the modifier of the adjective tall, you're also looking for an adverb, because remember, adverbs describe not only verbs, but also adjectives and other adverbs. And we already know that phrases like prepositional phrases, for example, can modify other words, and they can be adverbs or adjectives also. Another kind of phrase we will be seeing soon is called the appositive phrase. An appositive, which we'll cover later, but it does the same thing, but it's not a prepositional phrase. Now we have this idea of dangling modifiers. This is kind of a rare, it really isn't the most common thing that happens in writing, but it does happen. A dangling modifier is a phrase that is meant to describe something that doesn't exist. So if you have a sentence and there's a dangling modifier, it means whatever this phrase is trying to describe isn't actually in the sentence. So think of a rock climber, and think of a rock climber hanging by his fingernails, and there's no ledge between his feet. He's about to fall. He's dangling because there's nothing to grab onto. So a dangling modifier is the same thing. It's not grabbing onto anything. It's about to fall. It doesn't belong. Now, a misplaced modifier is a phrase that is describing a word in the sentence, but it's too far away from its word, so it's giving a very unclear meaning. We saw yesterday an example of a sentence where my cousin went on and on about her wedding in the elevator, and that sentence was kind of humorous because if you thought about it, it seemed as if the wedding took place in the elevator, because the phrase my cousin went on and on was a little bit too far away from the action of the sentence because it was an adverb phrase. So you want to rewrite those and make sure they're clear. But like I said, the video of that is up there on YouTube, in my YouTube channel, so you can use it there. Now, tonight's homework is, I think, fairly simple. It's a worksheet on prepositions, specifically prepositions that can show positions in space. Because prepositions show time and location. And in this case, it's location. Your task is simple. You'll be given 12 sentences. Each of the 12 sentences contain prepositional phrases. You are to underline the prepositional phrase and then circle the preposition. So if you correctly identified the prepositional phrase, you'll see it in a moment, but if you correctly identified the phrase, the first word is the preposition. So that part's pretty easy. If for some reason you lose this, or you're absent and you want to review it, or you want to review for the test, which will be tomorrow or Friday, you can go to my YouTube channel, which is the link is on the screen, or you can go to my class website, and that is where you will find also a copy of the video as well as the homework and any class handouts that I am giving out. Okay. Any questions? Okay, I will see you in class tomorrow.